What's going on, everybody? My name is Stefan Coons, and I am the CEO of Pursuit Health and Performance, and welcome to the podcast. All right, story time. So I had a client, let's just call her Jill. And Jill started training with us. Actually, this isn't a correct client anymore, but I'm just going to give her alias. So Jill worked with me for about 6 months, doing training and nutrition. And when Jill came to me, and this is kind of how I do a lot of my nutrition consultations, I ask, hey, we always recommend that you track your food. And I couldn't even get the words out. I'm like, you track your food. And she's like, nope, I am not living my life like that. I'm not weighing out my shit. I'm not going to take a freaking food scale with me. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And got really defensive and very upset. And I totally understand. I'm like, okay, well, okay, Jill, what made you react like that? And she's like, I worked with a trainer in the past and they were so on my ass about weighing every little thing out. And then I was doing it and I wasn't losing any weight. And I just felt like it just took over my life. And I was went out with my friends. I was trying to weigh the bread and I had this little food scale in my purse and my friends made fun of me. And then I stopped the food scale, but I was doing it at home and my husband wanted to eat. And I just if it would have worked, if I would have lost a ton of weight, it would have been great, but it just was miserable. And I'm like, okay, Jill, let's take a big deep breath. I totally understand actually where you're coming from, because I've worked with a lot of clients where tracking your food ends up being such a chore that it not only makes you hate tracking your food, but it honestly makes you hate fitness. And that sucks. And that's sad. And I think that's exactly what happened to Jill. And after working with her for months, that is what happened. She felt like the MyFitnessPal and tracking her macros ran her life. That's all she thought about all day. Am I hitting my macros? Did I enter my food? It was this worry thing. And I will say, just to fast forward, I'm going to go back a little bit, but to fast forward, about on month 4, she actually did start tracking her food. We implemented plans and strategies to where she wasn't freaking out about it. She was really bad at planning, honestly. She didn't plan the day ahead. So it was an anxiety thing. It was trying to get everything together and scatter it the day of. And I even see that with some of the current clients I have. They're trying to figure out their macros every day, the day of. Plan it ahead, right? For most people that have a family, you have dinners planned for the week. Most people, right? And if you don't, you have meal prepped food. And if you don't have that, then what do? You're like, what's for dinner? I don't know. We don't have anything. All right, let's go out to eat, right? So that's what happens when there's no plan. But for Jill, she didn't want to go out to eat, right? And because, her main goal was weight loss, and she's like, there's extra calories and it's extra money. She's trying to watch money. So that's, for Jill, it didn't work. Tracking her food didn't work. What's funny though? She actually lost about 30 pounds in 6 months with barely tracking any food at all, because we implemented strategies. So, no, you don't need to track your food. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret, guys. Probably, I would say the vast majority of the year, I don't track my food. There you go. I said it. And a lot of trainers are full of shit and they don't tell you that. And there are some that weigh out everything, and good on them. And they go, I actually had a conversation with a coach, and they go, well, you're telling your clients to track, but you're not tracking your food. That's a bad example. And what's kind of funny to me that the coach said that, because I go, oh, well, so if I should lead by example then. And they go, yeah. I said, okay, so all my clients should be working out 6 days a week for 90 minutes, because that's what I do. And they're like, well, no, you're way more advanced. And I go, boom, bingo. You hit the freaking nail on the head. I'm more advanced. I don't need to weigh out my stuff. Is it better if I weigh it out? Sure. But you know what? I already know what I'm consuming. I basically know my macros. Is it perfect science? It isn't. But I also tracked for an entire year, almost every day at one point in my life. And all tracking should do for most people is calibrate the eyeballs, right? Now, if you want to track every day the rest of your life, you will have the best results. You're using science. I compare calories and nutrition and money a lot. So here you go. Here's an analogy. If you tracked every single cent in your checkbook and you had an Excel sheet and every receipt and you were really meticulous, would you be better at saving and be in a better financial situation? Yes, 100%, compared to just kind of looking at your bank every day and kind of guessing. But I'm going to let you know right now, judge me if you want, I don't track every cent I spend. My stepmom's a CPA. She probably does. I don't do that. I kind of look at my bank account. I'm like, I'm good. I could buy this, right? Like that's how I roll, man, and I'm not like, I do know my bills. Okay. I'm not like financially illiterate or irresponsible. I just don't want my money controlling me like that. And I think people get anxiety over money, and I think they obsess about it. And it's the exact same thing with nutrition. What can I eat? And can I eat this at this time? And I didn't hit my macros completely. So a lot of my clients, I give them like a 10 or 20% allowance if they are tracking macros, which most of them are. And I say, hey man, you got close. You did pretty good. And they're like, yeah, but I was 10 grams low on my protein, and I was 30 grams low on my carb, and 10 grams low on my fat. And I'm like, but if you did that every single day, if you were around that range, if you hit like an 85% accuracy every day, or even 90%, do you think in 3 years that you'd make some pretty damn good progress? And they're always like, well, yeah. And I'm like, there you go. The goal is not to be perfect, guys. The goal is to do pretty damn well. And I actually did another Facebook Live. I should do a podcast on this, but I said how to be an 80% person, which basically is like, you actually shouldn't strive to be a 100% person. It's bad. It's setting you up for failure. Everybody thinks they need to be perfect on everything they do. No, you just need to be pretty darn good, right? Which is like an 80 to 90%. It's in that range. And if you do that just by time and just by consistency, you're going to get really, really good results. Am I perfect on my nutrition every day? Abso-freaking-lutely not. Do I miss workouts? Yes, I do. Do I wake up, like I say, I wake up at 5 a.m. every day, which I do a lot of the times, but do I every day? Hell no. Last Sunday I slept until like 9:30, okay? Come at me at 5 a.m., please. But real talk, like I am not perfect, and you shouldn't strive to be either. But nutrition, right, and tracking your macros, it's a tool. It's a tool, right? And most of you guys use MyFitnessPal or Fitbit or Within or whatever you're using, right? So it's an app. It's a tool to tell you. But guess what? A lot of food labels are actually kind of a little bit inaccurate. Now, I have friends that compete in bodybuilding that are very meticulous. And if you want that life, you do need to weigh out all your stuff. You do need to measure all your stuff. You need to track everything because you're competing to be the best. But if your competition is just yourself, all you got to do is just be quite a bit better than you were the other day. Because there's that saying, you only need to be, 1% better every day. That's actually way too much, right? Because if you are 1% better every day, that means that each year you would get 365% better. That means you would 3.5x your performance, your finances, and your physique every year. Gotcha, right? That's not realistic. That's actually way too much. Try like 0.1% better every day. That is actually more realistic. Like it's so minute, and that's why like going to 80% effort or 80% accuracy with your nutrition to 100%. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, because it does, but it's for most people, it's going to burn you out mentally. And that's really the truth, guys, is if you need to be perfect, like how long can you keep the perfection up for? Could you do it for 20 days or 30 days? And then after you're like, man, I put in so much effort, and you didn't really lose that much more weight, right? It was only a 20% difference if you hit 100% every day versus 80% every day. And yeah, you're going to, lose 20% more weight than you would have. But for the effort from 80% to perfection, that is a lot. That's a very mental taxing to like zero out your proteins and your carbs and your fats every day perfectly. Is it possible? Yes, it is. The only time I've ever really done it is when I knew I had like a photo shoot coming up when I was doing fitness modeling. I want to be on a cover of a magazine. It's worth it, right? That makes sense. But for you guys, like, being perfect on your nutrition is probably not necessary. And I would say that you probably don't need to track your food. You can do rules. You can do intermittent fasting. You could do other things that help you put at a deficit. You could just clean up your diet. If you just did like the paleo diet or even something maybe more extreme like the carnivore, and I'm not condoning these, but if you did those, you would just probably put yourself in a deficit just by doing them. So those are some things too that I implement with my clients and our coaches do at Pursuit, because we know that counting calories is not for everybody, and it's not the only way. Now, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is don't think that I'm saying, you don't need to be that great with your calories. And this is the exception to the rule. If you're trying to do a slow cut, right? Like let's say I'm trying to go from like 180 pounds to 170 pounds, and I want to maintain as much muscle as possible. You're going to be at a small deficit. Maybe that deficit's like 300 or 400 calories. If I'm eating, and I'm not like great at math, so I'm not even gonna do the math, but if I'm eating like you know, I guess if I'm eating 2,000 calories a day, then 200 calories would be 20%, I think, right? So the thing is, if you're off 200 by 200 calories, it actually does make a difference because that's half of your deficit, right? So if you think you're at a 400 calorie deficit and you're eating and you're only at a 200 calorie deficit, it's going to take you twice as long. You're going to get upset. And that's if you were like right at 80. The problem though, I've seen in the past, so just be careful, is some people will actually be like too lenient. They'll be like, well, I'm like pretty accurate. And they're at like a 350 to 500 calorie deficit. And some days they're like not at a deficit. And the other day they're at their 500 calorie deficit. And then the other day they're actually like 200 calories over. And then they're at like a 50 calorie deficit. And then they're at like an 800 calorie deficit. And then if you actually average it out, they're at like a 200 calorie deficit all week. But they had like 2 days in there where they were like really low. So they're like, I'm doing great, right? I'm being really good about my nutrition. Look, I like, you know, I weigh under 8 this day. And not that we're telling people to under eat, but they're like, yeah, I really was really good on my carbs this day. And I just stick to like veggies and meat. And I'm like, great. But what about those other days you ate over or those other days you ate at maintenance? Those are going to throw you off. And once again, if we go back to the money analogy, that's like saying, oh, well, I want you to save $100 a day. And you're like, oh, you know, or $400 a day. And you're like, okay, well, I saved 400 and I saved 400. And then I actually spent 500 over. And then I actually saved nothing. And then I spent 200 over. And then I only saved $50. And then I saved $300. And then I saved $400. And we averaged it out. And I'm not going to do the math again, but like maybe it's only $250 that you saved. And you're not at that mark. And you're like, yeah, but that day I saved a ton. And those other days, like I still saved money and I hit my mark, but you have to look at the average, right? You have to look at the average with the calories because it isn't just what you burn within a 24-hour period. Yes, that's how we track them, but look at the 7-day. In fact, when we first started Pursuit, we would have all of our clients screenshot their 7-day view in MyFitnessPal. Yes, you can do that, by the way. And it shows you on a graph where you're at. And it looks at an average of like, and it just shows, I think there's one that shows macros, but it shows calories. And some people would have like 3 days where they're good and 3 days where they're way off. And they would come on their check-in and be like, I think I was really good this week. And I was like, yeah, on those 3 days. What about the other days? Oh, I'm not as good. And I go, well, if we actually average it out, you're just at maintenance. What? Oh, was it maintenance? Yeah, you actually like weren't in a caloric deficit at all. If we added up all the things, because yes, 3 days you were at the 500 calorie deficit, but then those 3 days you were like 400 over, right? And that's like more of an extreme example, but it happens. And so the kind of 80% effort rule isn't to not necessarily strive to get pretty close, but it's teaching you to not have anxiety, right? Don't be like that girl I trained and freak out and make it feel like it's just taking over your entire life. Like that is why you shouldn't track food, right? If you're that person, if you get anxiety over it, if it like is ruining you, if you feel like, it's making you freak out like she did, don't do it. But you also need to challenge yourself. If you say, I don't like it, it's a lot of work, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, it is. It's work. Like it's just like working out. That's like saying, well, I don't want to work out because it hurts and I'm tired and blah, blah, blah. Yes, that's part of working out, right? And it's the same thing with nutrition. Nobody said it was going to be easy. In fact, if you talk to anybody that's in good shape, they'll tell you that abs are made in the kitchen. It's a lot of work. You got to prep your food. You got to do the shopping, and if that's the physique you want, if you want to get to better shape and you want to lose weight and you want to build muscle, you have to have your nutrition on point as much as you can. So there is a fine line. Like I'm talking to people that get anxiety and maybe have like diagnosed anxiety and stuff versus somebody that's just like not wanting to put in the effort because it is can be a pain in the butt and it is a little more effort. So this is what I tell my clients to do. When they first come to me, I say, please track the first 30 days. If you track your food the first 30 days, then when you stop tracking, you'll be able to look at a plate of pasta, chicken, broccoli, and whatever, and a soda and be like, oh, I kind of can guesstimate like what this is. And even if you're not like adding it all in your head, you'll make better decisions. Let me repeat that. If you track for 30 days, the next 30 days, you'll make better decisions. Because right now, if you're not tracking or you haven't tracked, you're making, to just be honest with you, you're making like probably a lot of dumb ass nutritional decisions. You're sitting there and you're like just eating and like grabbing the bag of chips and grabbing the food or the muffins or the croissants. You have no idea what's in them. You're like, oh, I think they're kind of probably high calorie. I'm like, oh, the croissant's actually 400 calories and it has like 65 carbs in there. And you're like, what? But you don't even know. Like, you have no idea. Like, you're just basically swiping that debit card without checking the price tag on anything, right? And that is what's going to screw you over. But if you track, you will make better decisions. And every single check-in that I have with somebody after the first 30-day period when they track, they go, I didn't even realize how much I was eating, or I didn't realize that I was way under eating. That happens a lot with weight loss, especially with protein. I thought I was getting in a lot of protein. I was only getting in like 60 to 70 grams when I'm supposed to be getting in 150, which means they're getting in less than half the amount to build muscle and burn fat. So yes, it is important, right? But ultimately, I want to leave you guys with this. Just know that there are more options. And I'm a firm believer that tracking shouldn't be forever. Your ultimate goal should be, I want to get a great physique. And during that time, I might have to track my food. It's going to get me there quicker. It's going to be a less painful road because I will get there. But once I'm there, I shouldn't really have to track my food anymore. I want to learn how to get to the point where I can do maintenance and I don't have to input every calorie and I don't have to weigh out everything. And there's two methods. You basically eat the same thing every day for most meals, right? Or you just track longer to where you become like a very calibrated genius with nutrition, right? When you look at stuff, you're like, that's that. Like, that's 25 grams of carbs and you're probably pretty close, right? And I honestly feel like I have kind of got to the point where I eat like the same things. When you go shopping, it's probably like the same foods, to where I do eat like the same breakfast almost every morning. So I know exactly what it is. And when I go out to eat at like Cafe Rio or Chipotle or these other restaurants, when I do go out to eat, I basically get the same thing. So like, I know, yeah, sometimes I'll enter it in my Fitness Pal, but it's already in there. It takes one button. So, you know, you have options. The ultimate goal though should be to not be able to track eventually, I think, especially if you're not competing in fitness. If you're a freaking fitness model and you're competing, you're probably not even listening to this. Well, I'm telling you, most of the year, I don't really track because I'm not trying, but this is why. I'm not trying to get a specific physique right now. If I was trying to put on 4, 5, 6, 8 pounds of muscle, I would be tracking everything. Maybe not 100% accurate, but I would be tracking it. If I was specifically cutting for an event, I would be tracking. So this is not permission to tell you guys, if you're trying to lose weight, that don't track. Find another method. That's not what I'm saying. Just telling you that it's not for everybody. But if you guys have specific questions, let me know. You can hit me up on social media. You can even go to www.pursuithp.com. You can fill out a form to chat with a coach about your nutrition and your training. We can kind of dive in a little bit deeper, because really the ultimate thing is you guys need a custom nutrition plan. Everybody, like, you can't do a one size fits all. Your macronutrients, your calories, and the way you eat, like how many meals, what types of food, that's all based on like your lifestyle, your schedule, your culture. Like, it's deeper than people think. And that's why there are registered dietitians or fitness nutritionists like myself and our coaches, because it matters. Like, it's not just one cookie cutter program that fits all. You do need more of a customized approach. And we definitely do that at Pursuit. So if you guys feel like you need help, you know where to find us. Before we go, if you guys could also just give this episode a 5-star review if you feel like it deserves it, that would be awesome. If you like, comment, share on your Instagram stories, you could tag us at Pursuit_HP. That would be awesome. Or you can find us on Facebook, Pursuit Health and Performance. In fact, a lot of our content, by the way, is on Facebook. That's probably where we're primarily, but we're trying to be more on Instagram. And then at TikTok, I actually have Pursuit_HP. So it's literally the same handle as Instagram, and all of our little short podcast clips go on there. But you can find us on Apple's podcast, Spotify, to listen to all our episodes. I really appreciate it, guys. I appreciate the support, and just thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.